Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Last Sunday night, the new series of Dragons Den returned to our TV screens with a new dragon in the den, Chanelle McCoy. Chanelle joins me now to discuss her first investment and what we can expect from her for the rest of the series. Chanelle, your business success has been concentrated in the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, that's right, Karl. We're in the pharmaceutical industry for sure. We're mainly specialised in generics, and my father set up the business over 35 years ago as a veterinary company, initially wholesaling and then went into developing veterinary generic, the copycat generic veterinary products, and he was a vet himself by profession. And then, as a kid, I worked in the business. We all did. There was 5 children in the family, and I always had a really keen interest in the business and was fascinated how my father had evolved the business over the years. When I finished college, I studied marketing and finance, and I was really eager to come back into the business, but rightly so, my father had said to go and get experience elsewhere and maybe bring something back to his business. So I went to the UK and I worked in Wyeth Pharmaceuticals, which is the human pharmaceutical company. Great training. I was a sales rep. I carried the bag there for 2 years around the UK, and very challenging because I looked after Oxford and Berkshire, which at the time they called the reps graveyard. So trying to get past the receptionist to get in to see the doctors was a challenge. But after 2 years there, I came back to our family business and said to my father, look, it'd be great to get into the human business. He had started to kind of dabble in it himself, so we both kind of co-founded the human business, and really when you look at the veterinary industry, globally that's worth about 260 billion, the veterinary, but when you compare it to the human business is worth about 1.3 trillion. So there is great potential in the human generic business.
And before we discuss the business itself, I'd like to just say that from a B2B sales perspective, one of the big challenges for many salespeople is getting beyond that receptionist. Mm-hmm. How did you do it?
Well, I think, you're absolutely right. But for me, even though it was very challenging, I saw it as a real kind of goal and objective. So I was very motivated by it. And I was definitely determined to kind of break down the barriers. I was trying to find out what was their favourite type of biscuits. Did they have kids? What was their kids' interest in? I mean, literally anything to try and build a relationship with them. And I think, look, it's like anything in business. It's all about building relationships, and having that potential likability factor. So that tended to work.
So it was really down to the human connection from your perspective. Now,
yes.
Just in relation to your own father's business, when you got involved in that, you convinced him to diversify into human medicines. Was this sector not already dominated by large multinational companies?
Yeah, look, Dad had already, started to explore that, and we had looked at kind of aid agencies in the human business. But, we both felt that the human market was definitely one to go after for a few reasons, because when you are developing a generic product in human, you have to go through less trials than if you were developing a veterinary generic product, because animals are in the food chain and there's a lot more emphasis on toxicology and all that. So, we learned that developing a medical product was actually, a slightly simpler than veterinary, even though it still has very much its challenges. But in terms of the multinationals, that obviously they're focused on the originator products. They develop products. It takes an originator company approximately 12 years to develop an original drug from start to finish. It costs them probably about 400 million sterling to bring the product right through R&D and onto the market. Whereas when you're developing a generic, which is the copycat, it probably takes you about 4 years, and it would cost you probably 700,000 or 800,000 euros. So there's quite a difference. And really, what we do is that we wait until the originator product comes off patent, and we are ready then to launch the generic once the patent expires.
And how many other companies are doing exactly that?
In the veterinary area, we probably would be the largest European developer of generic veterinary products. In the human, there are a number of good companies in Eastern Europe and Greece and in India doing what we do, but we have kind of carved out our own strategy. We develop more of the niche, the smaller products, rather than the big blockbusters, because those drugs are very well developed in India. They're very high volume, they're very low cost, and we can't compete. So we have found what we're good at, and it really is more of the smaller niche products.
And looking at both the human medicines and veterinary medicine side of the business, how diverse are your markets from a regional perspective?
Yeah, very diverse, and when especially in the medical business, when we set up the business, the first place we went to was Europe. I mean, Ireland wasn't really even on the radar for us because, when we set the medical business up 17 years ago, Ireland are very pro-originator products. They would have been the most least generic friendly, and that makes sense because Ireland has all of the top 10 companies, pharmaceutical companies globally would have a base in Ireland. So would it have been the right thing to see Ireland, the Irish government, very much promoting generics when they had a huge amount of support from the originator companies? Now, I know that has changed and Ireland has become much more generic friendly because they see the absolute benefits in terms of saving money for the government's health bill. But Ireland is small in comparison to going after France and Germany and Poland. So we now in the medical business, we're in 69 countries globally. And in Dad's business in the veterinary, he has conquered over 80 markets. I'm catching up to him.
Which is a phenomenal success, to be fair. Now, regulation is an inherent part of any pharmaceutical company. But how does FDA approval differ from the other regulatory requirements?
The FDA approval and you have the European approval. They are quite similar in terms of both their standards are very high. There is no standard better than the other. They just, in some areas, they have different requirements, but it doesn't mean that they're less or better than each other. We're fully approved, obviously, by Europe and by many of the Asian and Latin American countries because that's where we sell to also the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. The FDA is, this is a very exciting strategic project for us. We in our facility in Loughrea, we have a 17-acre site. So I think we have over 300,000 square feet now. So we have just completed building an FDA facility for the human products, and we'll finish completion of an FDA site for veterinary in the summer. We hope both facilities will gain FDA approval in the next 12 to 18 months. And we have, many products that we have developed for Europe that we want to put through our FDA plant and bring them into the States. So really, the States for both my father in the veterinary business and for me in the human business is the holy grail.
Now, Chanelle, many of our listeners would have seen you in action as the new dragon on the latest series of Dragon's Den, which started last Sunday night. But how did the opportunity arise for you to participate in the series?
My understanding is that the Chanelle and RTE had seen me on the Late Late Show doing an interview with my husband, AP McCoy. And after that interview, then there was a film about AP when he had retired. So they watched the film and realised then that I was involved in business and that I scaled up part of our family business. So they approached me then and to see would it be of interest to me to come on Dragon's Den.
And before you started filming, did you have any expectations about the type of businesses that you might invest in or the sectors you might steer clear of?
For me, the most important thing was, and it's like with all the other dragons, we all have our own businesses, we're all very busy. So I wanted to invest in someone that wasn't going to be particularly high maintenance because I'm there as an investor and I'm there as a mentor. I'm not there to run somebody's business and go out and drive the sales of the business. So that was one of my criteria, was somebody who wasn't going to be very high maintenance. And I feel the investments I have made, they're very good to work with, and are not proven to be high maintenance. Another area as well is, there's some things you can't teach people in business. It's either in their DNA or it's not. And I think the ability to sell, the likability, the customer service, that is a very important part of anybody, of an entrepreneur, anybody who wants to grow their business. So for me, trying to tease that out with the entrepreneur, and once they showed that they were very sales driven, very keen, very customer focused, I was very content with that, because there are other very important aspects of business that can be taught. You can learn about a cash flow, you can learn about your balance sheet, you can learn about how to control your overheads. But as I feel the sales ability, the customer service, really caring about your customer, that's a bit more DNA.
Now, last week you were fast out of the tracks when you secured your first investment with George Dempsey from Mojo Creations. Remind us about the business and what attracted you to this particular venture.
It's funny, when you asked me earlier there, was there any industry you wanted to stay clear in? And, I suppose one of them was technology, because I don't know a lot about it. Another one is food. And I did always think, I'm not going to invest in something that I don't know anything about. So for me, I wanted to find something I could add value, or I wanted to find something that would be relevant to my life. And when George came in, when he pitched to us his product, it was a children's book, and it had so once you read the book with your child, then you open the craft pack and you can make some of the characters that are in the craft pack, part of the book. So I could instantly relate that to my 3.5-year-old son, and he's mad into crafts, and as is my 9-year-old daughter. So it was relevant to me, and the educational play area is a really growing area. But George did a fantastic pitch, very likable guy, very open to suggestions, and for me, is very easy to work with.
So what's the plan from here now in relation to Mojo Creations?
Yeah, big plans. So we're making some modifications to the product at the moment, and luckily George himself is a fantastic graphic designer, so he's very talented artistically, so we can make changes very quickly without a lot of cost, which is great. And George is self-published, so we've already been in discussions talking with one particular, quite a big publishing house, so we've bought the product to them, and really we just need to make some modifications, but they love the concept. So hopefully now it's to take it forward, get it into a publishing house, both England and Ireland, and get it on the shelves.
And without giving away too much, what sectors will feature strongly on this year's series?
Food is quite a strong sector on the series. Some inventions. There's some quite clever inventions as well. How
will you strike a balance between running a successful company in the UK and managing your responsibilities as an investor in Ireland?
I said to all of the entrepreneurs that I invested in, that I am there as a mentor. I'm not there to run or drive your company. So I'll happily allocate a day a month to everybody. Need to see the management accounts every month. We'll have maybe a board meeting every 2 months for half a day. So I think it's important. And I got great advice from the other dragons, because obviously, me being new, I was very eager to learn from the other dragons, what is the best way to manage the entrepreneurs in terms of my time. So this was some advice that I had taken, is to allocate a day a month, and obviously be available on the phone when required, but not on a day-to-day micro level.
And what will you expect from your new business partners?
I expect sales. It's the first thing. I expect to keep the cost under control. But to be honest, I've had a lot of interaction with the entrepreneurs I've invested in already, even since we've recorded it. And all of them have been so responsive, so proactive, so eager. So really, I feel very blessed with my entrepreneurs.
And of course, as I said, you're based in the UK yourself. What is the mood in the UK today regarding the business community in relation to Brexit?
Look, I think the mood is diversify your markets, and this is, and we saw a lot of entrepreneurs coming into the den and they'd said, yes, we're established in Ireland, now we want to hit the UK. And I don't think that's the right strategy for companies at the moment. I think there's a lot of other bigger and more in terms of currency, better to, hit France, hit Germany, Poland, further afield. But I think there's still a lot of uncertainty. But it's just to really relook at your market strategy.
I can understand it from a currency perspective why businesses would look towards France and Germany and other countries within Europe. But I would imagine that the language barrier is causing some companies concern in relation to considering exporting to non-English speaking countries.
To be honest, Karl, we deal extensively with all the countries in Europe, and yes, Ireland actually is the only English speaking country in the European Union. But every country we deal with, we never have issues with languages. Honestly, everybody in business, in companies in France, Germany, Sweden, they are so well educated with the English language that it's never a barrier. I think the only place I struggle is Madrid. Everywhere else is absolutely fantastic with the English language.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.